Have you ever found yourself standing in the dead center of your own life, surrounded by a fog so thick you can't see your own hands in front of your face? It's not a literal fog, of course, but a mental one, a dense, swirling miasma to-do lists, half-finished projects, competing priorities, and a deafening chorus of other people's expectations. You have a dozen browser tabs open, not just on your computer, but in your mind. One tab is for your career, another for your health, another for your relationships, and each one is playing its own frantic, looping video. In this state, the simplest decision, like what to eat for lunch, can feel as monumental as charting a course across the ocean. You know you need to move, to do something, but every direction feels equally uncertain, equally fraught with the possibility of being the wrong one. So you stand still, paralyzed by the sheer volume of it all, feeling the immense weight of your own potential as it curdles into anxiety. This feeling, this pervasive and uniquely modern form of paralysis, is not a personal failing. It's the background radiation of our age. We are told that we can be anything, do anything, that all information is at our fingertips. But we were never taught that the price of infinite options is the death of meaningful choice. We weren't handed a manual on how to navigate the blizzard of information that whips around us every single day. And so we find ourselves adrift. This is a universal question that sits at the heart of our journey today, a question that obsessed a man named Liam Porter. He didn't just ponder this question casually. He was nearly consumed by it. He saw this internal chaos not as a nuisance, but as a fundamental bottleneck of human progress and happiness. And his search for an answer wasn't an academic exercise. It was a desperate, personal quest to find a way out of the fog, a journey that would ultimately lead him to a profound set of truths about the very nature of thought itself. Truths he would later codify in his masterwork, Clarity First. Liam Porter wasn't always a guru of mental clarity. For years, he was its most tragic victim. In his late 20s, he was a rising star at a hyper-growth software company, the kind of place that celebrated a culture of moving fast and breaking things. Liam was a product manager, a role that positioned him at the exact intersection of every competing demand within the company. The engineers wanted more time and simpler specs. The marketing team wanted more features to announce for the next big launch. The sales team wanted specific tools to close their biggest clients. And the executives just wanted everything yesterday. Liam's job was to be the signal in all that noise. But over time, the noise began to win. He would spend his days in back-to-back meetings, his notepad filling with a spiderweb of contradictory requests and brilliant, but disconnected ideas. His nights were a blur of spreadsheets, data dashboards, and user feedback reports. He was drowning in information. He believed, as many of us do, that the path to the right decision was through the accumulation of more data. If he just read one more report, had one more meeting, built one more model, the perfect answer would crystallize. But it never did. Instead, the data became a cage. Each new piece of information was another bar, making the path forward not clearer, but more constrained. His team, once inspired by his intellect, grew frustrated with his indecisiveness. Meetings would circle endlessly. Deadlines would be pushed. The product, once innovative and sleek, began to suffer from bloat, a patchwork of compromises designed to appease everyone and inspiring no one. The crisis point arrived during a quarterly product review. It was a high-stakes meeting with the entire executive team. Liam was supposed to present the strategic roadmap for the next 6 months. He had spent the prior 2 weeks in a state of near-manic preparation, sleeping 3 hours a night, his desk littered with coffee cups and printouts. He stood before them, slide deck loaded, but as he opened his mouth, nothing came out. Not a clear, compelling vision, but a jumble of caveats, dependencies, and alternative scenarios. He presented options, not a direction. He showcased the complexity of the problem, not the elegance of a solution. The chief technology officer, a famously direct woman, eventually cut him off. "Liam," she said, her voice not cruel but weary, "I don't need a tour of the labyrinth. I need you to show us the way out." In that moment, the entire room went silent, but for Liam, the noise in his head was a deafening roar. He had failed. Not because he was lazy, not because he was unintelligent, but because he was lost. He had become so obsessed with understanding every tree that he had completely lost any sense of the forest. That night, he didn't go home. He sat in his empty office, the city lights twinkling below, and realized that his mind, his greatest asset, had become his own worst enemy. The quest for clarity wasn't a professional development goal anymore. It was a matter of survival. That searing public failure became Liam's crucible. He took a leave of absence, stepping away from the relentless pressure of the tech world, and began a self-directed, obsessive study of decision-making. He didn't just read business books. He dove into cognitive neuroscience, military history, Zen Buddhism, and even the journals of master artists. He was searching for a common thread, a pattern that connected the minds of great generals, innovative scientists, and focused artists. He found it in a place he least expected, not in what they added to their thinking, but in what they relentlessly, ruthlessly took away. This led to his first major breakthrough, a principle he called subtractive focus. The core idea was that the human brain is not designed for multi-threaded processing. We are at our best when we pursue a single, clear objective. True clarity, he realized, is not achieved through better organization of the clutter, but through the aggressive elimination of it. To test this, he started consulting, taking on small, pro bono projects with businesses and individuals who felt stuck. One of his most telling case studies was a chef named Marcus, who owned a small, beloved, but financially struggling Italian restaurant. Marcus was a culinary artist, but his restaurant was failing. When Liam first visited, he was handed a menu that was more like a novel. It had over 70 items, spanning every region of Italy, from complex risottos to delicate seafood stews. Marcus's logic was the logic of addition. If a customer came in and didn't see what they wanted, he might lose them. So he added more and more, trying to be everything to everyone. The result was a kitchen in chaos, a waitstaff that couldn't remember the specials, and food that was consistently good, but rarely great. The cost of ingredients was astronomical, and waste was rampant. Liam's advice was terrifyingly simple. He told Marcus to take a blank piece of paper and write down the 5 dishes he would be proud to serve for the rest of his life. The 5 dishes that represented the very soul of his cooking. After days of agonizing, Marcus chose 5. A perfect cacio e pepe, a slow-braised osso buco, a specific type of wood-fired pizza, and 2 others. Liam's instruction was stark. This is your new menu. Get rid of everything else. Marcus was horrified. It felt like amputation. He would be turning away customers, limiting his appeal. But Liam held firm, explaining that by trying to please everyone, he was truly exciting no one. By focusing his limited time, energy, and resources on just 5 perfect dishes, he could achieve a level of excellence that was impossible with a 70-item menu. He could perfect his supply chain, reduce waste, and train his staff to be masters of those specific meals. Hesitantly, Marcus agreed. The first month was scary. Some regulars complained. But then, something shifted. Word of mouth began to spread, not about an Italian restaurant, but about the place with a life-changing cacio e pepe. Food bloggers came. The reviews were ecstatic. The restaurant wasn't just surviving. It was thriving, with a line out the door every night. Marcus was happier, less stressed, and finally creating the food he was born to cook. This was subtractive focus in action. It was a deliberate act of pruning the good to make way for the great. Liam saw this pattern everywhere. Great military commanders were not by fighting on every front, but by concentrating their force on a single, decisive point. Great writers find their voice not by using every word they know, but by finding the few that are essential. This principle became the first pillar of his philosophy. The path to clarity begins not with question of what to do, but with the ruthless, courageous question of what to ignore. For a time, Liam believed that subtractive focus was a complete answer. He applied it with remarkable success, helping clients declutter their businesses, their strategies, and their lives. He taught them to prune their product lines, to say no to distracting opportunities, and to focus their energy on the vital few instead of the trivial many. And it worked. But then he encountered a new, more subtle kind of paralysis, a problem that subtraction alone couldn't solve. He was working with a humanitarian organization, a nonprofit run by a brilliant and passionate director named Elena. Her organization was dedicated to alleviating poverty in a specific region of sub-Saharan Africa. When Leah met her, her team was stretched thin across a dozen different initiatives: agricultural support, microloans, healthcare clinics, school construction, and more. They were doing good work, but their impact was diluted, their resources scattered. Applying the principle of subtractive focus was the obvious first step. After a series of difficult workshops, Elena and her board managed to prune their extensive list of projects down to just two core missions. The first was a clean water initiative, focused on digging wells to provide immediate, life-saving access to potable water. The second was an education initiative, focused on building schools and providing scholarships specifically for young girls, an investment with proven long-term transformative effects on community health and economic prosperity. They had successfully subtracted the noise, but now they were faced with a new, agonizing problem. Both initiatives were critically important. Both aligned with their core values. Both were, in their own way, the most essential thing they could be doing. How do you choose between saving a life today and transforming 100 lives a decade from now? The organization became locked in debate. Half the board championed the immediate, tangible impact of the wells. The other half argued for the generational, systemic change offered by education. They were stuck, paralyzed not by complexity, but by a conflict of clarities. Liam realized that his first principle was incomplete. It could help you find the essential few, but it couldn't help you choose when faced with more than one essential. This is where he stumbled upon his second great discovery, what he termed the principle of the vector. He realized that effective action requires more than just a point of focus. It requires a direction of travel. A goal, he explained, is a destination, a point on a map like New York City. But a vector is a direction like due east. You can have multiple destinations that lie due east, but you can only travel in one direction at a time. The problem with Elena's organization was that they were comparing two destinations without first agreeing on their direction of travel. Liam sat down with Elena and asked her a question that shifted the entire conversation. He asked, in one phrase, what is the ultimate transformation you exist to create? What is your vector? They moved beyond talking about activities, digging wells, building schools, and started talking about their fundamental purpose. After much discussion, they defined their vector as fostering self-sustaining generational progress. It was a simple phrase, but it was a compass. With that vector established, the choice became clear. While the Clean Water Project was undeniably vital and saved lives, it was a form of disaster relief, an intervention that would need to be perpetually maintained. The Girls' Education Initiative, however, was a direct investment in self-sustaining generational progress. Educated girls become women who have fewer, healthier children, who in turn are more likely to be educated themselves, creating a virtuous cycle that could lift the entire community out of poverty from within. The vector made the decision for them. It wasn't that wells were unimportant, but that education was more aligned with their chosen direction of travel. This was the deeper truth Liam had been missing. Clarity wasn't just about eliminating options. It was about aligning your remaining energy along a single, purposeful axis. It's the difference between a floodlight, which illuminates everything weakly, and a laser, which channels all its energy in one direction with immense power. First you subtract, then you align. The discovery of the vector principle was the missing piece of the puzzle. For months, Liam had treated subtractive focus and the vector principle as two separate, powerful tools in his arsenal. He would teach one, then the other, applying them to different problems. But the real earth-shattering breakthrough, the moment that unified his entire philosophy, came to him not in a library or a boardroom, but on a solo hiking trip in the mountains. He was navigating with a map and compass, a skill he'd always enjoyed. As he stopped to get his bearings, he was struck by the elegant, two-step process he was performing without even thinking about it. First, to get a clear reading, he had to shield the compass from any magnetic interference, his phone, a metal belt buckle. He had to subtract the noise to isolate the true signal of magnetic north. That, he realized with a jolt, was subtractive focus. It was the act of creating a clean, quiet space in which the essential signal could be heard. But finding north wasn't the goal. It was just the first step. His destination was a peak to the southeast. Once he knew where north was, he had to orient the map, align the compass with his intended direction of travel, and plot a specific bearing. He had to point himself. That was the vector principle. In that single mundane act of navigation, his two ideas merged into one cohesive, beautiful system. The grand synthesis was this: clarity is not a thing you find. It's a process you execute. It's a verb. We spend our lives hoping to stumble upon a moment of perfect clarity, as if it's a treasure buried in the sand. But Porter's work revealed that clarity is something you build moment by moment through a deliberate, two-stage discipline he called pruning and pointing. First, you prune away the distractions, the non-essential commitments, the confusing data, and conflicting desires. You create stillness. Then, in that stillness, you define your vector. You ask the deeper question, not what could I do, but what is the single direction of travel that gives all my actions meaning? This unified theory reframed the entire problem. The enemy wasn't complexity or uncertainty. The enemy was passivity. We are overwhelmed by the fog because we are waiting for it to lift on its own. Porter's grand idea is that we are not the victim of the fog. We are the creators of it through our own inaction, and therefore we have the power to dissipate it. The process of pruning and pointing is the act of turning on an internal engine, a fan that actively blows the fog away and reveals the path. It transforms the search for clarity from a frustrating hunt for a static answer into a dynamic, repeatable skill for navigating a constantly changing world. It meant that anyone, from a CEO of a Fortune 500 company to a student choosing a major, could learn the rhythm of this process. Prune the options, point the energy. Prune the tasks, point the focus. It was a universal algorithm for making sense of the world, for turning the overwhelming noise of modern life into a clear, focused, and powerful signal. Our journey through Liam Porter's world began with that familiar feeling of being lost in a fog. We felt the weight of Liam's own paralysis as a product manager drowning in data, a crisis that launched him on a desperate search for an escape. We followed him to his first discovery, the power of subtractive focus, learning alongside the chef Marcus that true excellence comes not from addition, but from courageous elimination. But that wasn't the whole story. The journey deepened when we encountered the nonprofit director Elena, who showed us that even with a pruned list of options, a new kind of paralysis can emerge. This led to the discovery of the vector, the profound insight that a clear direction of travel is more powerful than a list of worthy destinations. And finally, on that mountainside, we witnessed a grand synthesis, the unifying aha moment where it all clicked into place. Clarity is not a destination. It's a two-step dance, a dynamic process of pruning and pointing. This is the blueprint. It is not a complicated 10-step plan. It is a simple, profound, and actionable discipline. Look at the chaos in your own life, whether it's in your career, your projects, or your own mind. Start by pruning. What can you let go of? What obligations, beliefs, or tasks are merely good, but are standing in the way of the truly great? Be ruthless. It will feel like a loss at first, but it is the necessary act of making space. Then, in that new space, you must point. Define your vector. Ask yourself, what is the single most important direction of travel for me right now? Not the goal, but the direction. Is it growth? Is it stability? Is it service? Is it mastery? Define it, write it down, and let it become the compass that guides your next decision. Understanding this is the first, crucial step, but knowledge without action is just trivia. The real change happens when you decide to apply this blueprint, to actively start pruning and pointing in your own life, today. It's a commitment to stop being a passive recipient of the world's noise, and to start becoming the active creator of your own signal. If this journey has resonated with you, if you feel ready to begin that process, then you're in the right place. By subscribing to this channel, you're doing more than just asking for more videos. You are raising your hand and joining a community of people who are committed to living more intentional, focused, and meaningful lives. You are making a commitment to yourself. The fog doesn't have to be your permanent reality. Stop searching for clarity and start creating it.